Hello, everyone. This is Gabe Lee, your host for Random Select. On this episode, I'm joined by Chris Jordan, fellow YouTuber and drummer for a band. His works can be reached by clicking on the links below this video. Definitely check them out. He's a really cool dude and he does a lot of good work. If you want to help support Random Select, you can reach out to me at my Twitter at Rndmselect and ask to be on the show, or alternatively, you could donate through the donate button on the right side of my channel on YouTube. Any little bit, either way, will help and it will be greatly appreciated. I hope to talk to some of you interesting people out there in the world. Love you all. Let's get this Chris Jordan talk going. Hey everybody, I'm here with Chris Jordan today, and how's it going for you?
It's good, man. It's been a pretty long day today, actually already. You want to hear about it?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so let's start out. Basically, because I've been making a lot of movie reviews recently
Yeah, I
on
just
my
watched
channel.
your Ant-Man one and your Trainwreck one because
Cool.
in the newspaper there was like a review for Trainwreck, and I was like, I know Chris Jordan just put out like one for Trainwreck, and I was like, I want to know what he thought of it. You had a more positive take on it than they did. They were like, just go see the stand up for Amy.
Oh, really?
They're like,
Yeah, that's uh that's kind of like what my girlfriend said, was that like it's so similar, and that like her other stuff might be a little bit better, but I don't have the reference of that because that's like the only thing I've ever seen her in. So I enjoyed that,
yeah,
but yeah, so I've been doing that. So last night, because I work at a movie theater, I was able to go see Southpaw with Jake Gyllenhaal that comes out this weekend.
yeah. What is
So
that? Because I
it's
don't think I've heard that one.
it's pretty good. It's like a boxing movie. I just filmed the video for it today.
Oh, is it about the one guy who they is it a biopic? Like, is it about a real boxer? Or am I completely
It's a
off?
fictional character, but it's
Okay.
played off almost like that. Dude, I have a question for you, and I think this might be a discussion for a lot of people. You were
Okay.
the second person I've ever heard call it a biopic. I've n- I've never heard that. I've always heard biopic, and I always say biopic, but about a month ago, one of my friends that I watch a lot of movies with called it a biopic, and I was like, no one says that. And then you just said that. So,
Okay.
can you
I've
explain to me why you call it a biopic?
That's just how I heard it. That's how I heard it from like directors of it. That's the only reason I've ever said it. And like I've heard people say biopic and it makes a lot more sense.
Well,
I
the
I
Go
think
ahead.
yeah, I think the reason it is because they're like making it into its own word. Like they're divorcing it from biography and like picture.
Uh-huh. Because the weird thing is like biopic, biography, like that kind of makes sense, but if you like read someone bio, then it's bio. So I've always called it like a biopic. The first time I heard biopic, I was like, "What?" And but I mean, I guess if you've heard it from people, then it's a it's a more common thing than I thought about.
Yeah, no, it's pretty common. Like, there's someone who is supposed to direct a whole bunch of them, and like he was originally going to direct the Brian Wilson one. He may have ended up producing it, and he was going to do like a lot of people like
Uh,
Brian Wilson type because he got really inspired by what is the John Lennon one? Nowhere Boy.
yeah, yeah, I've seen that one.
Yeah,
That's a really good one.
yeah, that is a really good one. That the guy who plays Kick-Ass and he's John Lennon, he's really good
Mhm.
in that role. He is really good. Um, but yeah, he was gonna do like a string of them, and I think now he just produces them. And when he was talking about it, he said it's a biopic. And then the person who did the the brother of the lead singer of Nationals, uh, when he did Mistaken for Strangers, he refers to it as a biopic, even though
Maybe
that's a documentary. But
tomatoes, tomatoes, I
yeah,
guess. Have you seen since you mentioned it, have you seen the Brian Wilson biopic?
no, no, I
Dude,
haven't.
it is fantastic. Like
I
for any of your viewers listening, like Love and Mercy is so good. Like without a doubt, like one of the best like biopics, whatever. it's
yeah.
it's definitely one of the best and like one of the best movies of this year. Yeah, I just watch a
Yeah,
lot of movies, but
yeah.
um,
Does he meet Charles Manson within the time frame of that movie?
no.
Like, okay, so that's before or is that after?
I don't know. The way that movie works is like it hops between like him writing music for the Beach Boys and them going through like their peak,
Yeah,
making the album Pet Sounds, and then it jumps like I think maybe 15 years from like present day, so like just 15 years ago to
yeah.
that time in his life, maybe.
Okay.
Or
It,
it hops
so
like a few years in the future. I don't know how long ago.
yeah, I had thought that he was also in the movie writing Smile, in which would put that like right around the time when like he was out there with Charles Manson. But so it definitely covers both. I guess you kind of have to avoid that like element of his life because um I mean that's just questionable. Like
Yeah.
he didn't know that it was going to go down like that.
See,
And
I honestly have like no idea what you're talking about.
okay, I want to say that he is the one who was like friends with Charles Manson because Charles Manson stayed in one of the Beach Boys' house and like built like a little commune for like a month or something, and they were starting to get dysentery and stuff, and that's when they went out into the desert or went back into the desert. Yeah, but I think Brian Wilson either was the one housing him or was the one who had like his girlfriend, wife, and like baby killed by Charles Manson because Charles Manson thought that one of the Beach Boys was like fucking with the other one that he was uh staying with. And so that whole thing like went about, and then everyone realized that Charles Manson wasn't like this great revolutionary. um he wasn't going to be like Timothy Leary or anything like that. He was going to be a really racially charged, like violent person.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, the movie definitely doesn't go into that.
Yeah,
The movie covered like everything that it covered, that is the only thing that I know about Brian Wilson or the Beach Boys. Yeah, definitely you should see that movie. Everyone
yeah,
should see that movie. It's really good. Yeah. But as I was trying to say, had a long day because I saw that movie at 1 in the morning. Came home and
Jesus.
yeah. Well, I because the way it works, like they'll screen it, but they won't screen it till like midnight or one.
Yeah,
Like tonight, I get to go see Pixels, Adam Sandler. Not excited, but I will
that's
see
supposed to be
it.
really fucking good, actually. It's supposed to be hilarious. Like, it's just
I
supposed to be like a visual treat. Like, if you
Yeah,
just
well,
like
I
lay
definitely
back.
think that it will be visually interesting because it's like, I mean, it's every like video game that I mean we all like grew up playing.
Yeah,
Um, Actually, the only one that I played from that was like a little bit of Donkey Kong, and I definitely played Pac-Man, but
yeah,
I haven't played much of those. But like them coming to life and attacking us, like it's interesting. I'm curious. I want to have really high hopes for it. So I'm gonna go into it with like as positive of a mindset as I can.
yeah,
Uh, It's getting like torn apart by like certain critics, but I definitely think it's gonna be like it's gonna be a fun movie, like one
yeah.
that you might as well go and see, something like that.
I think if you just like focus on the fun aspect, like this is the equivalent. No, I was gonna say it's like when Samuel L. Jackson was like, "You just get stoned for the Avengers, and it's the greatest movie you've ever seen." But that like stood on its own. I think he was saying that because I think prior to it coming out, there was like that sort of up in the air. They're like, "I don't know if this is gonna actually work."
Uh-huh.
Joss Whedon's like, I know I just pronounced that name wrong, but
I think it's Whedon, but you're
yeah, I
fine.
think it is Sweden. Like because all the shows got canceled, Buffy was the only one that really like stuck around and stuff like that. Like it was kind of
Uh-huh.
like, and Titan AE, a lot of people either love it or they really hate it. So they were, I guess there was that question and just how it was going to work, really having like the modern superhero team up movie, and Samuel L. Jackson like a little bit before it came out was like, yeah, you just don't worry about it, just have fun with the movie and it'll be great. So I think that from the review that I read for Pixels, more or less is like the way you got to approach it. Is just it's just for fun.
Yeah.
Like obviously you're not gonna have your whole world perspective changed, and you might. I mean, it might
I mean,
secretly be
maybe. I
like,
mean, maybe you're
yeah,
just gonna.
lose it.
All I know is that I'm sure all those games in this movie are about to make some bank again.
Yeah. Well, I think if they like, because there's like Acid Trip Pac-Man and stuff like that, like the re-visualized ones are all like really crazy. If like they capitalize on putting out map packs for like asteroids and stuff like that, all the DX versions, all the Acid Trip versions, um, yeah, they'd make tons of money. Just the fact that they could tie it in like that, because
Yeah.
that definitely is like their copyright stuff. Like as far as visuals go, like they could do whatever they want with that.
Hmm. It'll be interesting. I'll definitely maybe I get to see it in like 3 4 hours.
Yeah.
I have my fingers crossed, definitely. But yeah, so I have to go see that tonight. But I saw Southpaw last night. Had to make the video today, and had to go to like 2 band practices. So it's been a long day, but it's cool. And now I'm here, and it's great.
Are you in two bands now, or are you
No, no,
just?
no. I'm in 1 band. I built this field all by myself with no help. Such a long band name.
Yeah, that's a really
Dude,
long
it
one.
is. But you have to say the whole thing. That's like kind of our like little band rule. Just
Yeah.
for fun. Like you have to pronounce the whole thing. But then I play in a worship band at a church uh,
Okay.
every week. So that's what I was at tonight. But early in the day I was practicing with some other people and stuff.
What? And I know I'm about to fuck up the rule. I built this field all by myself and with no help. Was that
Yep.
right? Okay.
Yep, there you go.
What? Because I don't think I ever saw you guys perform. I think I had divorced myself from the like local music scene more or less at
Uh-huh.
that point. What do you guys like?
That's the thing. Dude, I don't even um I think because I don't write the music. I just play drums. But the guitarist and singer Justin takes influences from a lot of bands. I don't know if you've heard any bands that have a lot of like interesting tapping parts through the guitar. Um,
Yeah, I know what you're talking about with that.
yeah. There's a band called Algernon Cadwaller, I believe is how you pronounce the
Yeah, I
band's
think
name.
that's right.
Yeah, and that's kind of one that we've been compared to. Uh, Basically, it's kind of like a lot of genres. It's like that. There's one song that we have that is more post-hardcore than any of our other songs, and then some things are pretty much like kind of normal pop punkish. It's honestly just a lot of aspects, which is cool because if you listen to our EP, most of our songs, because there's only 3 songs on it, but 2 of the songs are about 6 to 7 minutes long. Um,
Yeah.
and within them, there's like at least 4 to 5 different sections that all are kind of like not necessarily different genres, but all definitely their own thing. Um,
Yeah. Like they have
so
their own flavor.
yeah, so the thing that's really cool about being in that band to me is like it's not stuck to necessarily one certain genre. It's just a little bit of a lot of like maybe alternative, post-hardcore, or like pop punk that we
Yeah.
all like.
Yeah. I like those like longer piece ones. I didn't know that you had the EP out. What's the EP? Is it on Bandcamp or is it on
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
SoundCloud?
It's
Okay.
on. Let me check this link if you wanna. I
Yeah,
believe
I
it's just the band name, but I'm yeah, yeah.
okay.
So it's just I built this field all by myself with no help.
Okay.
Bandcamp.com.
Okay, yeah, I definitely have to check that out because I really like those longer pieces of music, especially when they change up the styles and like the flavor of what's going on in the song, or they have like a motif running through it and they like bring it in and out, like the
Mm-hmm.
theatrical like song work and like uh yeah, I just saw Rush last night and that was crazy. That was the
Dude, that's awesome.
yeah, no, it was really good. And Gilly's dad works like at a restaurant and they get their food from FSA. And I didn't know this, and I guess any FSA like probably has this like ability in any state. But if you work at like a restaurant or a business that gets their supplies in from a FSA, you can ask your FSA distributor or your manager to ask your FSA distributor, and they usually supply the food for like the stadium and the arena or whatever. So they
Uh-huh.
have their own suite within like the stadiums that
Oh wow.
they get free tickets to every show for like 20 people roughly, and you can
Dude,
just
that's
ask them and
awesome.
get it. Yeah, no, so that's how I saw it. It was in a suite, and that was the first time I'd ever like been in one, and I always like had seen them in movies and stuff, and I was like, these aren't like real. These aren't real life. I'll never be in one of those. And then I got to be in a. It was so crazy because it was like so just the only thing you saw. It's the only way you could ever see a concert and not have like the feeling that anyone's in front of you other than the band because you're like divided and set
Mm.
outward almost. It's so crazy. It is such a like closer like experience. I'm so glad I got to see them and just
That
those like crazy pieces.
that is so cool. Like one that you got to kind of get that super hookup, but the fact that you saw Rush, like that's also pretty freaking cool. I also get the hookups sometimes because my dad is the fire inspector of where
Uh
I live. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And so basically, like every business owner kind of has to respect him. Not that he'd like do anything stupid, but like they just have a respect for him because he gives them the okay to open up, and he's able to shut them down if they're breaking any rules. So if any place is hosting like any bands, usually we'll get in, like the VIP section.
Yeah.
So I got to see I mean, they're not like huge things, but I got to see like Paramore, We the Kings, the All American Rejects. This was like 4 years ago, but
Yeah.
bands like that. I got to I got to be in the VIP section for Three Doors Down. That was life changing, man. Let me tell you. But they played
Why?
Kryptonite.
Oh, okay. Did you get to do meet and greets for any of those?
The only band that I got to meet was a band called We the Kings. I don't know if you know who they are, but
Yeah, I don't really know.
yeah, they're just kind of like a pop rock band. It was right before, like now they're pretty popular, but it was like right before they started getting popular, and it was cool because I was like, I think I was probably 12 at the time, and I had never like met a band, so to me they were like celebrities, and so this is the
Yeah.
first time I ever got to meet someone that I thought was like, really important, and they were so nice to me, and the bassist, like as I was leaving the area, like yelled out to me to tell me bye because I had like met them and got a picture, and so like that was the first time that I ever saw like how genuine some people that are like definitely more popular can be. Because in
Yeah.
my head I was always like, dude, they're famous, like they don't want to talk to any of us, like they're too good for us. But and I'm sure there's are some like that. But like as a kid, finding like someone like famous to me to be like so nice, that was pretty freaking cool.
Yeah. Well, I think like with famous people, because there's been a few that I've like had conversations with, and like had photos taken with, but I think like they're just like any people, like even once they're famous, if like they have that moment to like have a conversation or just to say hey or whatever, that most are gonna be pretty cool, but obviously there's gonna be like the rotten apples, and they're just gonna be
Uh-huh.
dicks to you.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think I've ever like come into contact with someone who was like really rude or anything. I mean, because like if I had like a following, whatever, I'd be like stoked to stop and like talk to people. Like that would be so cool to me.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a really cool thing, I think, for a lot of people who do sort of like get the stardom or whatever. Like Kid Cudi has talked about it before, and he's like, when I first like broke out and had like that album, I'd just go in the streets, and anyone that like wanted to talk to me, I'd sit and have a conversation with them about the album. I go like to the actual store and buy it and like sign whoever kid is there buying an album's copy and stuff like that. So yeah, there's definitely one people who just like get really stoked on it. And I think it's the people that get really stoked on it are the ones who are sort of like, I believe I'm talented and stuff like that, but they don't like foresee themselves becoming like a super icon or anything like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And then when they do, they're like, well, these people helped me get there. And I think, especially with you being like such a social media person, like it definitely does feel a whole lot more like the fans got you there. And that was sort of the same thing with Kid Cudi as he did it in the MySpace days. And the whole reason that
Ugh,
he became famous is I think someone shared it around and enough people shared it around on MySpace that I want to say that just someone who had recording equipment saw it and was like, let's get this in motion. And they got in contact with them and they got that album out really quick.
wow. MySpace, man.
Yeah, so crazy to
Those
think
were
that was a
the
thing.
those were the days. Oh man, that's cool though. I didn't know that. I don't really listen to Kid Cudi, but I have a few times, and he's good. I
Yeah.
just not
I
like one of my main dudes, but
yeah, he isn't really one of my main things too. He like definitely is for a certain crowd um
uh-huh.
who smoke a lot.
Yeah.
Like I mean, and he doesn't deny it. He's very straightforward about it. He's very cool about it. But him as like a person and like as a social media thing, I think he has a lot of interesting things to show and say to people going through that same path. Like just as a person, I think he's really intelligent and things like that. Music wise, he's not on any high pedestal for me, but I think he is a good artist, and he's
Yeah, he's
definitely
definitely
listenable too.
yeah, he's definitely not bad.
Yeah.
I like him. But dude, have you I'm just bringing back because you said MySpace and that had me thinking. And I think if people are listening to this, they'll definitely be able to relate to this. But do you still have your MySpace account?
Dude, I see. I don't know.
Or do you want to bury it deep in the ground?
No, I don't care. I like that for me. And there's been like points in my life where I like at a young age I was like, I want to do this thing that doesn't make a whole lot of sense right now. From the standpoint of being like a 10 or 12-year old,
Uh-huh.
and then like tried to do it at like that point in my life and like did just completely didn't understand anything about like the world, didn't have like life experiences really
Mm.
to tap into. But yeah, MySpace when that came out, I did like the handle and everything, so I had it on my like bulletin post and everything like that. I was like, I want to be a social media thing. I want people to like look at this, and I did like blogging at like fucking sixth grade. Like,
Dude, that's awesome. Dude, I was like 9 at the time. So mine is probably way worse than yours. I know that specifically there's a photo of me like holding a hairbrush and I like got Photoshop so I like painted around me holding that hairbrush and I like thought it was like cool and there's no like context around why I did that photo. I was
yeah.
just like, dude, if I take this photo of me, I can make the background like bright blue and it'll just be me and this hairbrush. And I was like, it'll look awesome. And it's just really bad. It's
I like how MySpace, because it was like the first time when you would have like selfies and stuff like that. I guess people weren't really doing selfies at that point. They were doing like a weird,
they didn't call them selfies.
yeah.
That's the thing. Like selfies have become a like phenomenon over the last 2 years, but I don't know if that's just because they started being called selfies because like people have been taking photos of themselves for since the beginning of time. Like,
Well, I think it's the way you go about it now because like yeah, people have been taking photos of themselves since the beginning of like cameras, not necessarily the beginning of time. Um,
the beginning of time, man.
yeah. Well, it is funny though, because you would think like that there were representations of people since the beginning of time and stuff like that, but like the first cave paintings and like those really crazy cave paintings that they found that are really elaborate and like seem to appear to show like a cosmology, like it is the visual representation of these primitive people's religion.
Mm.
They show the actions like that people are doing, and not the people, and then they show like animals and life forms and stuff like that. So like they were divorced from like trying to artistically represent themselves for a while, and then I mean, people didn't start doing portraits of people until after I think that they were doing like religious like portraits of Jesus and the Madonna and things like that.
Mhm.
Um, but I think it's just the way that you have to take a selfie now. Like if you are using the phone and have like only that arm's reach, I think that really is what is the selfie. When you're like doing like a DSLR or like a fisheye lens camera or just a point and shoot camera and setting a timer, I don't know if that actually counts as a selfie. I don't count it as a selfie. I think a selfie
Yeah, I
is
guess not. That's just like a picture. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I guess it's the whole like front facing camera, like, or maybe it's the idea, cause like I mean, a lot of people will just post pictures of just themselves of like whatever they're doing. I personally feel uncomfortable taking a photo of myself, even if it's like I'm just by myself. Like if it's not like you said, like setting a timer and taking like a photo with my DSLR, I feel like weird. And I mean I've taken them like I have a few selfies of myself because I'm like I guess I need to fit into this like this norm, but I always feel like really uncomfortable and like definitely not in public unless it's like a Snapchat or just like a funny photo of myself. Like I'll never take a serious photo of myself in public, which a lot of I've seen a lot of girls do.
Yeah, no, I don't understand that at all. I don't understand why you would take a picture of yourself in public, other than that it brings attention to you. Like the moment that you pull out your phone and
Uh-huh.
like visit, because everyone fucking knows what it looks like when
Uh-huh.
someone's taking a selfie. Yeah, I mean, that just brings attention to you. I mean, it sort of makes it look like that, yes, your life or whatever you're doing at that moment is so important that you got to share it with the wider world. And then for the people that are there, they're like, well, this person's taking a selfie. And if, especially if it's a girl and it's like a dude checking out the girl, they're like, well, maybe this girl is the kind of girl I want to party with or something. I mean, that is the only reason it really makes sense to like do the whole elaborate like duck face selfie
Uh-huh.
thing or like have like a girl and another girl pile on top of you while you take a selfie. Like it's just so ridiculous, I think, and
Yeah.
like overdone of like a ritual for someone to be doing in public that I it just has to be to bring like attention to yourself. Like that is what you are doing when you take a selfie of yourself in public, in my opinion.
It's it's so awful. And sometimes when I go to work at the movie theater, I end up being the guy who like tears the tickets and stuff, so I just like people watch a lot
Yeah.
because there's nothing else to do. So I like specifically 2 days ago, this girl just sat there on one of the seats that we have in the lobby and just kept doing it. And every time she'd make a very different face, sometimes not very like some were just bad photos, and I was like, "Why are you doing that to yourself?" And
Does anyone do it while you're tearing the ticket, like about to see Ant-Man selfie?
no, no, that has not happened yet. Usually they all just like it's so confusing because like I forget I'm wearing a name tag, so most people that come through think it's funny to like call like they call me and they're like, "Oh hey, what's up, Chris?" And I have to like pretend that I know who they are. That's happened a few times. I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh hey," and they're like, "Good to see you again." I'm like, "Yeah, man, you too," and I have no idea who they are. And then it
It's
occurs to me that they probably didn't know who I was either, and that they were just messing with me. It's awful.
yeah, or just the fact that they were like, because they know their name, they were wanting to address you like that. What's funny though is like the one time that we've really had like a conversation in real life, I did that exact thing to you.
Hmm.
Because Halloween in Pier Park, I was like, I think that's Chris Jordan, and like at that point, I didn't even really understand that you were like lived in Panama City Beach. I had just seen like the videos on how to do YouTube videos that like Matt Gilligan shared, and I was like,
Oh wow.
yeah, like, and at the time when I'd seen that, I was like, well, this is cool and all, but I don't have any of this equipment. And I was like,
Hmm.
I'm gonna do it my own way. But I just love YouTubers and like social media people in general. And you were at Pure Park, and I was like, that's Chris Jordan. And like, no one else that are people that like now like really know you. Like, these are people that did percussion with you. They're like, who are you talking about? And I'm like, no, I'm gonna talk to him. And I like walk up to you and I'm like, hey Chris, what's up? And your face, like you understand that I have no clue who you are really, and you
Yeah.
have no idea who I am. And we have like a little conversation about Halloween. And I'm like, see you later, man. And you're like, what the fuck is going on?
I like vaguely knew of you just from like because we didn't go to high school together. Did you? I
Yeah.
think you graduated the year before I
No,
did.
I went. I think. Well,
Or were
I think
you?
I
Did
went
you?
to Gulf Coast.
Yeah.
Well, you. Yeah.
There was one day during my first year of band camp. I'm pretty sure this was you. If it's not, it's be just a pointless story. But you like came into the band room and you were like sitting there talking to people, and then like our instructor like told you to go home because you were I guess you were like talking to some of us. I don't know if you remember that.
It was at Jean Platt.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, then I
yeah.
vaguely remember it, but I don't know what I did.
I think you rode in on your bike that day. You
Yeah.
came to the school during a rehearsal on your bike, and he just told you to go home.
Yeah, I
And
don't
we were
think I
just
went
like,
home. I
we all
don't.
just kind of like sat there and just like, oh man, that's kind of awkward.
Yeah, I don't think I went home though. I really don't. I don't remember going home. I think I just came back like a little bit later and with Brent. I think
That
that's
could be
what I
very
did.
possible.
But yeah, I do remember that. I feel like yeah, that was weird. And then it's weird to think that he would later like bail, like
Hmm.
Sean, like the whole like scenario uh of him is kind of weird, honestly.
It's interesting. He's an interesting guy.
Yeah, he is an interesting guy. He
Definitely a slight mentor in my earlier years, which is always good to have. Anyone
Yeah,
listening,
no,
have a
definitely
mentor.
mentors are important. Have you ever watched any of those Ty Lopez videos? The like
Uh,
guy who's like, I'm in a
yes.
with my Ferrari or Lamborghini or whatever it is. He just fucking bought. He's like, look at my 2,000 books. Yeah, his
Dude,
like,
I hate that. I hate that specific ad though.
you hate that
He's like,
specific ad?
he's
Yeah,
like talking about books, and he's like, "Here's my brand new Lamborghini," and
yeah.
I'm just
No,
like, "Shut up."
he kind of is pretentious, but when you like
Yeah.
think about just how much like of a transition he went from like being broke, like this is well documented, he's not fucking around when he tells the story about him only having $47 in the bank account, and then now has the Lamborghini and the 2,000 books, which I think, no, there's no way the 2,000 books are more expensive than the Lamborghini. They might be if they're all like
Ah,
40 or
that
$50, but well, how much is the Lamborghini?
no, the Lambo's got to be way more expensive. But
Are
like 2,000 books a lot. Depends on if you want hardbacks or not. That might
Well,
not
they
be.
all look like hardbacks. They look like they're like the illustrated versions of like textbook like level
Yeah.
content. But his first rule of his 67 steps or whatever
Yeah,
it
I've seen his videos because I'm really into the whole like people who discuss like um working more and doing more and just like business steps and like becoming like a better version of yourself. I really like watching people like that, and there's plenty of them. I've never gotten into him though because like you said, like he's kind of pretentious, and I feel like it's better to watch someone that's really humble about it.
yeah.
Um,
The only thing that like what draws me to him, even though he's pretentious, is the fact that he's pretentious, but he legitimately feels that anyone can do it. He's just pretentious because he knows a lot of people won't,
yeah.
because it does involve like some work. But when you like look at his 67 steps and his first step is to find a mentor, and like the way he describes to find a mentor is just to go through like a phone book basically and call every like office for whatever it is that you want to do and be like, hey, can I intern? Can I work? Can I do this? Can I just talk to the lawyer? Can I talk to whatever? And he basically did that, burn up the $47, and like on the last day, uh, he got like in with this lawyer, and the lawyer's like, sure. He's like, if you really think like that this is like such an important thing to uh, have like me teach you something, then of course I'll do it. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to pay you right off the bat because I don't know if you have the skills for what I'm doing, but
Hmm.
I'll teach you how to do it. And even if I don't necessarily hire you, you just having learned these skills from me, and I'll write like the recommendation letter or whatever, um, will get you a job. And
Yeah.
Ty's like, okay. And then now Ty has millions of dollars. And it's just funny to think that like any self development thing on some level involves like you having a mentor. Like that is definitely like a big part of like spiritual development or personal development, work ethic development. You getting a degree is technically you going through a series of mentors who teach you, and hopefully, like they're legit mentors, and you really like connect with them and gain something beyond like the surface layer. But I mean, even really individualistic like practices for attaining like what you want have you going into some like outside resource, be it books or just art or something like that, to have some voice that was a little bit further along the path to whatever it is that you want, like share some knowledge with you. So the mentor thing, I agree with you 100% is like important.
And that's the thing. Like I 'cause at the time, like Sean Platt, for anyone listening, I really loved like music my entire life, and he was my instructor my freshman year of high school in the percussion section. And this dude like knew way more than me. I mean, he was just like he was really good, but he was also very good at disciplining us and teaching us how to work together, get stuff done. Like a lot of things that really will pay off to make like something that you are passionate about and something you believe in really successful. And this is the first time that I would had ever been put in a situation that I had to really like work and like just thinking back on it 4 years later, like that set up myself for the rest of my high school career with music, even with school, like working together with people, like knowing, having seen myself personally put in a lot more work than I ever thought was possible. That really helped me, like, okay, you can probably manage to do this, even though you think you can't. You've done something like that before, and I mean, it's possible. Um, so it was cool to have that mentorship my freshman year. So like if anyone, like if you have something that you want to do, just freaking like find someone that knows how to do it and learn from them. And even if it's like a little, it'll probably affect you a lot in the long run, and that's cool.
Yeah, yeah, definitely like reaching out for things that you like want to know more about is incredibly important. Even if it's someone like across like Skype or something who can just like
Uh-huh.
sort of direct you and look at maybe what you have out there or what your standpoint is and say, well, in this situation, this is what I would do, and sort of like talk through you about how they did it and stuff like that. Because I think and I've like become really obsessed with this idea of like observing the process, like whole like philosophy on living and like my spirituality has a lot to do with just observing the process of life itself, like, and like coming to a real understanding of that this is like a moving continuous force going on. And sometimes people that are a little bit further in that process or have done the process differently, just like the way that they talk about it can make you step back, look at where you are, what you've done, where you want to go, and adapt and more naturally like flow with what you are accelerating towards, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested. Like, I'm glad that you're interested in all that because that's like this is all stuff that I really like to do. Um, just like learning about like life, the best way to go about things, like life, creativity, and work. I really enjoy finding out people who've done it well and learning how they went about doing it all. Uh, that's pretty much the most intriguing thing to me.
Yeah, yeah, that those things are really big deals. And then I think once people like start to realize that those are like the big deals is like when they're like in that next step, like looking at it as a process of finding out how to develop like those talents and like just the work ethic and creativity stuff. Because if you're questioning like things that aren't about just like living life, like if you question and sometimes this isn't your fault. Like, I completely understand because I've been in a similar situation. Like, if you are just questioning how you're going to eat this week or something like that, like, you can't ever dedicate energy to other things because you're just so like constrained in like a bad situation. And then there's people who are in a decent situation who don't question anything beyond what am I going to do when this weekend's like, what am I going to do to break up this cycle that I feel sort of like trapped in, like this is the job that I'm going to work and I'm going to work it this specific way or whatever. And I was sort of talking to Mason about this, and it's not like what you're doing, it's how you're doing it. And if you're not doing it in a really involved way and like looking at it and saying this is literally the life that I'm going to have, like beyond like thinking about heaven, reincarnation, anything like that. If you were just to assume that this is uh, your experience in the physical form, which even in the reincarnation explanation and the heaven explanation and any of the spiritual explanations. This is the like one time you'll have this specific, very like fine-tuned experience of you're Chris Jordan and I'm Gabe Lee and we're having a conversation over
Uh-huh.
Skype. If you are worrying about the things outside of that, like if you are not like focusing on what you're doing and like observing how you can do it more creatively, how you can do it more passionately, how you can do it just more mindful and engaged with what you're doing, then of course you're going to feel like everything's like meaningless or that like your life's going nowhere because you're not putting any like purpose into it, is how I feel.
I agree. Yeah, I completely agree. There's been times where I really like thought I wanted to do something, and I would start it. I sometimes have an issue with like starting things and never finishing them, and I've recently come to terms with the fact that like there are some things that we might want to do, but we're not going to be able to put our all into it. And if you don't do that, then it's always like just it doesn't really satisfy you because it's not what you originally wanted in your head.
Yeah.
Uh, like sometimes I film videos and going into it, I'm like, dude, it's gonna be great, it's gonna be awesome. And then halfway through, I'm just like, this is, I'm not, I'm like distracted by other things and not really like as focused as I want to be with it, and then it never turns out good. As opposed to times where I do go to make a video and I'm extremely involved with the idea that I have in my head, and I'm focused on like really making it as good as I can, and like those always end up to be the best.
Yeah, I can understand that. I'm pretty similar. I'm so like crazy about like if I have like this random thought, I'm like, I want to fucking do that right now. I want to
Hmm.
create this like story or whatever. And I'll some things I like get finished, and most things that I get finished and put out, I'm fairly happy with. A lot of things though don't even get like remotely finished. Like I have these sketches and rough drafts of like things that I'm trying to work on or whatever. And
Hmm.
I just like bounce to the next thing. I'm like, well, this is what I want to do now. And there's things that I like tend towards and stick with really well. Like um, more or less, I've always come back to YouTube. Like that 100% is always something that I'm really engaged in with, and I usually come back to something involving like the play of words and how we can use them in like a new way. But yeah, I just jump around from projects so much, and what I try to do is I try to like put it in the desk drawer if I'm not like working on it, and then I might have like a random thought from doing like the podcast or from doing the YouTube or just from like a life experience that I had, and I was like, well, I can come back to this and I'll like finish writing the short story or whatever and put it up on Tumblr and let someone read it, and I'll be
Hmm.
like, well, I finally got to wherever I needed to be to write the end or whatever. But yeah,
Hmm.
I completely agree with you. If you're not like actually into it, like if you visualize this thing and for whatever reason you can't produce it in the way that you envision it, it like it feels hollow. Like it doesn't ever feel like it really sticks to you as much as like the thing that like when you're doing it, you're like, this is what I fucking wanted to do. This is like
Uh,
the experience I want to have. Like, yeah, you definitely put in that like bigger work ethic and you just feel more proud of making it, like in the process of making it. And then once it's completed, you're like, I want to share this. I want to like let people know that I was excited and happy with what I was doing.
yeah, that's interesting that you also always come back to YouTube. Is this your first time? Like, how long have you been doing like YouTube videos?
I've been doing YouTube videos since middle school. I've been doing them since middle
Really?
school. I have, I think, 5 channels in total from the times
Wow,
I've like started and restarted.
wow, dude, I had no idea.
Yeah,
I thought this was your first run at YouTube.
no.
Oh,
This is my first run at where I wanted to better understand what some of the mechanics of like the game that is YouTube were, and
uh-huh.
that's like why I reached out to you because the first couple they weren't big things. So it's just like I wanted to do videos in a certain format. Like the very first one I think was like a fucking surreal I'm a sixth grader and I want to talk about life or whatever, and it didn't make any fucking sense. If I went back and
Yeah.
like found the few videos that are still up for that, I would watch that and I was like, I don't even know what I'm saying because I don't actually mean any of these things like at
Hmm.
that time in my life. So like the jokes are completely lost on me. And then like little history fair videos that were just ridiculous was the next thing that came around. So I guess I only have four. Was that was the next channel, and I got really into that and making like shorts and like just trying to make like these campy, uh, almost parody videos of like actual events and like historical things. And I really like that one. That one didn't get a whole lot of attention, and then the next one was I don't know if you've ever heard these stories from anyone, but at some point in my life in high school, I found a book and it was called This Book Will Change Your Life. And in it, there's like 365 things that you have to do. None of them are good ideas. Okay, some of them are okay ideas, but like even the ones that are okay ideas, it's like this isn't gonna change my life. It's like it's just weird.
Wait,
And
so what kind of things does it tell you to do?
Uh, like there's one where you have to, if you're gay, you have to be straight for the day, and if you're straight, you have to be gay for the day. And then there's one where you have to live like you're a rock star for a day. And those ones are kind of normal. And then there's ones like bail a stranger out of jail, eat asparagus all day, and see how rancid it makes your like urine. It's just like stupid. The like most serious sounding one is go to France for a week. And then when you're in France, there's things that you're supposed to do. And one of them's like smoke 162 cigarettes because that's what French villagers do. And it's like, are you like joking? Or are you being serious? And I mean, obviously it's a joke because it is
Uh-huh.
really satirical, but they're just absurd. They're ridiculous. And so I did like 180 of them and film them, and those are just some of the most like bizarre videos of someone being in a situation that you could possibly come up with. And that like was the biggest like positive response I've ever received for it. People at school knew about it. People on YouTube didn't receive it that well. I got like a whole bunch of comments, and people were like, "What the fuck is wrong with you, kid?" But people on Tumblr loved it. I think that is the most followed blog I ever had. I think I had like um, 250 people really early on, and then like 600 around the time when I was stopping, which I was amazed by because the only thing I did was put up those videos every day, didn't tag them or anything like that. Someone, I guess from YouTube, caught it and then realized that it was on Tumblr and they spread it around. And I got like a girl in Texas who like was my groupie. She wrote me letters and stuff. It was great. It was that was my taste of fame. And then this time I was sort of playing with the idea of maybe I do daily videos and like have a random challenge. And I was like, no, I don't really want to do that. I want to talk about games in the way like the needle drop talks
Hmm.
about music. And I was doing that for a while, and like I've had an epiphany within the last couple of days that for the gaming stuff that I still do on my channel is really what I need to go back to, because as much as I like stupid silly comedy, like that's not what I'm good at. I'm good at like the analytical, like sort of catch you off guard comedy, like I'm talking about something serious and then I'm like, but you know why this is really weird, right? And then it's just like, well, fuck, that is really weird. I never thought about it like that, because that's just how I think. Like I don't think on a shallow level very well. I just think on either like a really overly deep level or in like a surreal psychedelic way. Like there's no shallow thinking about anything, because it does make sense to me to like observe like life or anything like that on like a really basic level. There's so much like complexity and gray area to it, in my opinion, that you just can't. And so yeah, I came back to YouTube this time and I was like, I want to share like these ideas and stuff that I have with a platform of people as well as I can. And so that's like why I reached out to you. I was like, I want to understand what things draw people in and what like makes people uh, feel comfortable with your YouTube channel. Because like I understand how to do Tumblr and I understand how to play Facebook and I understand how to do Twitter, but I don't particularly enjoy Twitter. I think the 160 character thing is just too constraining, and it feels like I'm on Facebook, and Facebook's just too addicting to me. It's too
Uh-huh.
addicting.
It
Uh,
is, dude. I've tried to quit that website so many times.
yeah, no,
Never.
I have too. I think the longest I quit Facebook was like 6 months, and I
Wow,
was
that's
like,
impressive.
yeah, but in the end, I was like, this is dumb. Like this, I am just divorcing myself from because people like accept that as like the counterculture thing to do. And I don't really feel this way about it at all. Like I love social media, and basically the only reason I left it is because like of an ex-girlfriend, and then she got it back in like 2 months, and I was like, you're
Gotcha.
ridiculous. You're feeding into the government thing. And then I was like, what am I talking about? I don't believe these things at all. I want the virtual reality. I want them to mainline the internet into my veins.
Mm,
Like that's what I'm looking forwards to. And then I went back. No, I've never been like sad with it before because I know like the things that we're gonna get after Facebook are gonna be
uh-huh.
way more addictive. They're gonna be way more real feeling. It's gonna be incredibly crazier. Um,
Yes.
so yeah, that I think is really what I'm going for with my YouTube is to like just put my internet identity out there in like a way that I am proud of. And so like the help that I got from you really early on was really appreciated and it really like made a difference. More or less, you I guess would be like a big influence on this podcast existing because
Oh,
uh
heart.
yeah, I had never like seen a Joe Rogan podcast or anything like that, and once I had talked to you about the things that I like needed to do a Facebook thing, I started looking at or do a YouTube thing. I started looking at like YouTubes that had been recommended that uh, I heard that I would like and things like that. And then like with the advice that you'd given me and just like having fun and like the things that work with YouTube and the things that don't work with YouTube, uh, it sort of led to the podcast, me coming full circle on the Let's Play things, and then Noah, having talked to him, has sort of revitalized the life of a gamer, like segments, the little shorts that I'm gonna go back in and then make just like actually only the videos that I have like the time to give to, like the cooking ones and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's been a like crazy like process, and it's weird to think that I think it's been like 2 months, maybe 3 months now. And I mean, it's just been a wild ride. I've enjoyed it so much, like coming back to YouTube. I'm disappointed that I didn't just do it prior to moving to Portland. Like if I had gone back to it when I was taking the break from college, trying to regather the money, I think I would have been having a lot happier of a time in PCB uh, in those last few months.
Hmm. That's cool. I think it's cool that you've like recognized what you're good at, and so that's what you're gonna go back to doing. Because I can relate to that. There's like some types of videos that I've just tried to like go out and make that just like don't end up working because they're just I don't know they're just not for me. I tried doing Let's Plays when I made gaming videos,
Yeah,
and I always like tried it. My issue was I'd stop. I would get like a few episodes in and be like, man, this is just not me. I don't have like I don't know. I don't have the focus to sit there and talk and play through like talk while I'm playing a game for so long. So I got into like I tried it so many times and I eventually just kind of gave up on that, and stuck to like doing like commentaries at the time. And then I fell out of that and like just now I've started doing the movie reviews because that's something that I did probably 3 years ago, and I stopped because I didn't think I was very good at it. But just now I've started doing it again, and what's cool is like I was still thinking about it in the way when I did it like a few years ago that I wasn't very good at it, But I think I'm not in like a cocky way, but I think I'm getting better at it.
I think you've received a lot of positive response to it, and what I was gonna say, having watched those reviews and watched like a few of the other reviews, I think the humor that you had going on when you were sort of just talking about like life in general, like of a high schooler,
Uh-huh.
to me, when you were doing it at that stage, I was like, this kid is a kid, and one day he's gonna like realize that like something, and it's gonna be like a different humor. And then you've come more like fully formed with that idea. Like it definitely, to me, feels like you are saying these things that you think are kind of funny, and it like because you are believing like the joke itself, you're like doing that hypnotism that like tell well no, like doing a good joke according to multiple stand-up comedians and especially Joe Rogan is like an act of hypnotism. You're telling like a story even when you're doing the little one-liner jokes, and the
Hmm.
whole way that a joke works like in a sense other than like three men walked into a bar type joke, like the bit joke, the only way that works is if like you actually care about it and are like really immersed in it. Not to say that you didn't care about like high school life or anything like that, just that like it was kind of hard, I think, for the jokes to work because you were in the middle of high
Uh-huh.
school. And
Yeah,
now
yeah.
when you're talking about like movies and stuff, and there's the whole part where you are like really engaged in like this breaking down of what the movie is, and then you're like, but it, or like the Ant-Man fight scene joke, and like you're getting really into telling the joke, like action of him climbing up the gun and then doing the punch, and like you're very natural about it, and you're like smiling and because you're really enjoying what you're talking about. And then like when you sort of do the punchline of even though it's like a little guy fighting, the action scenes are still good, like it is funny, like it is a humorous like aspect. And I think that that like is one of like the coolest things to see for having like witnessed like someone's YouTube channel really evolve, because most of the YouTube channels that I follow, like obviously the first videos I saw were the most recent ones.
Uh-huh.
So I've already seen them at the developed stage, and when I go back and see them at the undeveloped stage, I was like, well, it's kind of weird that they are all good now. I was like,
Hmm.
how did they not
Yeah.
realize it back then? But seeing like the natural progression of it, like having seen those videos first, and then you really like maturing and developing like the way that you just talk about things,
Hmm.
that like is really cool. So I definitely think that you have gotten way better at expressing yourself in the video format and just like in the talking like monologue format.
Thanks, dude. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been cool. Because like I've watched so many movie reviewers and like I watch movies all the time. Like me and my girlfriend Logan like go to the movies so often, and I've just always like, dude, I need to talk. I need to make videos talking about movies. It's like I just need to do it. Um, but it didn't happen until I like spoke with my friend Adam, and I was just like, hey, dude, we should do like a video podcast about movies, and like we were like, all right, let's actually do this. And so right now, the channel that I'm making it on, we're calling it Double Take. It's just me right now, but the plan is to evolve that into just like to more than just me, and to me and him and maybe another friend of ours, and like really really do more than that. But right now it's just me. And when like the first video we did, I was super nervous because I'd taken a little break from YouTube, and especially when you're talking, it's easy to talk about like your life and stuff, but when you're talking about like a type of art and you're trying to judge it for what it is, it can be difficult to find like the words that work the best, and try to structure it in a way that people are going to be able to listen to it and understand what you're saying. The first time we did it was awful. In the first few videos, the best thing about the videos that I first made was how they look. Like we built like a set for it. It kind of looks nice. I think. I
Yeah,
think.
I think it looks really like professional. I think it takes that like idea that the YouTube like video developer class teaches you to like have a set look, and I think the look works really well
Yeah.
for the reviews. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like it. It's in my friend's Adam's like spare bedroom, but I think the set itself is better than me speaking at all. Like I'd rather just people look at the background and just appreciate that. But just like recently, I'm gonna drink some water real quick. Just recently I've started to understand like, okay, like if I hit this point, this is probably going to matter more than hearing this. Like if I was watching a video, I probably wouldn't want to know this unless I was like having an in-depth discussion with somebody, but that would make the video super long. So like just recently have I felt like decently confident in myself. Like I still think I'm awful and I'm nowhere near good, but I'm also 17 and I've only just recently been watching films very seriously and trying to analyze them and look for deeper meanings and try to break them down more.
Y-
So it's cool, and I think you'll notice this too, Gabe, when you start like finding the videos that you're good at and how you're going to structure them. Because you can always like change that, and as you're changing that and learning how you make them and what works best for you, you'll eventually just evolve. And like you said, like the bigger YouTubers into that like finalized format um, of just like how you make your videos, and you'll really like be surprised by it. But it's been cool for me to like see the growth in the stuff that I'm making and how I'm like presenting, the films I talk about and the points that I hit, because I can see like the growth in myself every video, and I think that's really cool. Um, yeah.
No, I mean that definitely like I 100% feel you because I'm going through and feeling like those same things. I think that you're like way more developed than you give yourself credit for like at the aspect of doing it. Um, I think that the way that you are doing it right now is very in line with uh being good for like the experience that you have at it. Like you by no means are mediocre for the time that you've put into it or anything like that. Like you are moving in the right direction for sure. And I mean, obviously, like you said, you naturally develop it more and more just from like whittling away at like this block that you have
Hmm.
of what the raw idea is, and you like just say, well, this didn't work and this works a little bit more than I thought, and you just sort of mold it into what
Hmm.
is actually like what you were meant to present. And then like that is one of the things that I have like noticed about YouTube when I like think about it as like an art form. I was like, really the whole career of your YouTube is like an art piece in itself because you probably will still have early videos and you can look at that whole like piece of work that you did and how it got from here to there, and maybe only like the diehard fans day oneers and like yourself are going to ever really notice this, but the art of you making a video or making something for YouTube um, is an art piece in itself. Like looking at that
Absolutely.
process is definitely like something that you can find like an artistic value and like a narrative from, because it shows like a lot of development, because you're going to see like things from nervous ticks like disappearing in your like uh body language, and just like the ease and flow of how you're communicating the ideas. If you're that sort of video, if you're doing like sketches and stuff like that, like the production value and just like the narrative cohesiveness of like the little 3 minute like smosh type video.
Uh-huh.
uh Definitely like that formation of process alone is like a really important like artistic story to any like artist or someone who appreciates art. Like you looking at that alone like tells you a lot about art in itself and like what the human condition is and all that sort of stuff.
I agree. No, it's definitely it's cool, and what I think the most interesting thing is like, and a lot of people won't ever realize. I think a lot of people are scared to start YouTube, or pretty much like any sort of artistic endeavor, because they think like they can't do it. Um, and do you ever have any like self doubt moments?
I do with YouTube, and for whatever reason, like the week before I do the podcast, um, I just get like in a weird headspace. I'm like, I don't fucking know. Like, do I even actually know how to communicate with people the way I think I do? Like, can I hold a conversation with someone for an extended period of time? I was like, well, if I ask them this and they say this, and we just like talk about that, then what am I going to ask them? Like, we've talked about everything that we could possibly talk about. And like, that just drives me insane. All right. And I have like fake conversations written out for every single person that I've had on here, you included.
Really?
And I like even like people like Noah, Daniel, and Mason, who I'm really close friends with. I was like, I don't know what we're gonna talk about. I have no idea like
Hmm.
what common ground we have. And I'm like, I know I've talked to them for 2 hours, but I was like, but things were going on, or like there were pauses in conversation and stuff like that. I was like, yeah. And so every like week leading up to it, I build these like elaborate conversations in my head where I'm like asking these questions and like making these points, and they're making these points. I'm like, whoa, that's insane. Like, that's a great point. I never thought of that. And I'm having the conversation with myself, obviously, like in my head. And I know that they're not actually necessarily going to say that, and I'm not necessarily going to have that reaction to it. But I just get so hyped up on it
Uh-huh.
that I like am like, well, maybe I shouldn't be doing these podcasting things. And then every time, like as soon as I do it, it like naturally comes. And then usually the response at the end of it was like, this was a good experience. I had a lot of fun. I want to do it again. I'm like, well, what the fuck was I worried for?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Uh, but
I I think you don't need to stress as much. I mean, I think it's cool that you like try to plan. I don't know about the whole like trying to think out the conversation because then it wouldn't be as natural. But I do understand. I feel you. There's been like plenty of times where I've like done videos with other people where I like try to plan it all out and then like, dude, that's just gonna sound like fake. People are gonna be able to tell. But it kind of just like makes you feel better if you think you're gonna be prepared. But like I didn't know how this was gonna go. I've never even like talked to you other than that time on like Halloween.
yeah.
But I feel like I've known you for so long. Like this is one of like the easiest conversations I've ever had, which is cool. And I think it's really cool that you're doing this podcast. Like even if you're doubting yourself right now, just like thinking about how good this podcast is gonna be, just like in a few months from now, that should be pretty cool to think about. But no, like I'm glad that you're doing it. Like when I heard that you were gonna do it, I was like, oh, dude, that's cool. I was like, that's something that I've been scared to do for a long time. I was like, and this guy's doing it, and I know him. Like, dang, like that's cool that you're doing that. And now here I am on it, so I feel honored. But I think it's cool that you're doing it, and just I mean, I don't think you should doubt yourself, but it's good that you have a way to kind of like clear your head up with it.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know why I do it, and then it never fails that I don't really end up talking about what I have like
Yeah, yeah,
conceptualized. That
I would doubt that it would go out the way you
yeah,
planned. If it did, that'd be kind of weird. You could
that
like
would
tell the future or something.
yeah, that would be insane. And I could go on a whole spiel about telling the future. And if we get to books, I'll talk about that. But yeah, the only thing that ever sticks, I think, is like the first and last question. And those are like the things I usually think of first. Like those are the things because I have to know what the first question is. I have to know what I'm gonna like start off directing it to. Otherwise, it wouldn't work until like I'm in a situation where I can do like a sort of person to person setting, which is I think one of the goals I have going on is to like clear out some space in my little work cubby area and like have Portlanders come out and talk, and anyone who like wants to visit like talk on it. Because through Skype, even though it has worked like well, I think that there is like still that sort of like uh no, just like sort of like a contrived feel to it, just because it does involve like that technology of making a call. It doesn't necessarily feel like uh, people are just sitting down right at first, because you're like looking at a screen and you're like, well, this person's way away. And
Yeah,
then,
yeah, which is cool in its own way. But there's definitely a difference between podcasts where like it's just a Skype call, and there's one podcast that I listen to where they got like a deal to do it in like a coffee shop over. I think they're in London, and they invite guests to that coffee shop, and they sit in that coffee shop and just talk for like a good hour.
oh, that is good.
And so there's a difference between those two. They're definitely, I mean, not to say that either are bad. Like they're both good in their own ways. It's just a little different when there's like people definitely together. So if you ever wanted to do that, like that's a cool idea for sure.
Yeah, I definitely want to get to that. It's funny that you mentioned the coffee shop one because one of the ones that I'm familiar with that is alive, they get like four or five guys together and they go to like an actual bar and they do it like it is the guys out at a bar and you can like call in to the podcast when they do it live and like have a conversation with these guys at the bar or whatever so that like makes it feel like you're at a bar scenario having like just a dude's conversation or whatever, which is pretty crazy that like audio like theater has gotten like in that direction and like can do all these crazy things. But you said you and Adam are going to do a podcast for the movies?
Yeah, the plan is to start a double take podcast. Actually, yeah, hopefully I'll have a different name. But it's gonna be me, him, and then our other friend Justin, because we all I work with Justin at the movie theater, and we are all very much so into films, all in our own respected ways, and we definitely like the same types of movies, but sometimes like I really liked Ant-Man, but my friend Justin didn't like Ant-Man, and we've watched like a lot of movies together. And we're like, dude, it would be really cool if we got together and just discuss these. The issue we've been having though is finding a location because we wanted to do like a video podcast rather than just like microphones,
Yeah.
uh, and just try to like up the value to line up with the set we have for the main reviews. But we haven't been able to like lock down a good location that would work all the time because none of us like live on our own, so we have to
Yeah.
deal with parents and. One idea we have is to film it late at night in the movie theater that we work at, but we haven't gotten that okayed yet. I think
Yeah.
that would be a really cool idea,
That would be really cool. That
but
would be awesome.
that would also require like always filming at like 12 at night. And once my senior year starts, that would suck, but it would
Yeah.
also be worth it. I wouldn't mind it.
And plus like when you're at like those midnight conversations with people, something about like the all-nighter like just like pulls the conversation like in a very like dynamic way and it like
I feel you
makes it like
absolutely.
you're just so wired, I guess, from being up and it's late and the only like stimulation you're getting is that conversation. And I guess that that is really what like engages it so much is that because it's kind of dark and you know that normally you would be asleep, that like stimulation obviously in your brain like has a very high importance for you to be up, and so your brain's
Uh-huh.
like trying to break it down and figure it out, and you're just like talking your head off, and then you before you know it, it's like 2 a.m. and you're like, how did we do that?
Yeah, dude, I feel it. Yeah, like some of the most interesting conversations were the most fun. I've been at like Waffle House, and then it's like suddenly 4 in the morning, and you just look at everyone, you're just like, what? Like
Yeah.
when did this many hours pass? But yeah, so that's the idea is to have it. I mean, it just have to be late at night when everybody's gone, and we can actually get into that area and film. I think it would just look cool to be talking about movies while you're in like movie theater
Yeah,
seats.
that would be unreal. That would be so cool. I hope that you guys are able to pull that one
Yeah.
off because that like premise alone is just cool. I don't know if anyone else really has like that sort of vibe going on, even like professional people. I think like there are comedians that do live podcast at actual like open mic nights, which is kind
Uh-huh.
of funny. And like they have the crowd come up and like heckle them and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And I'm sure there's musicians that do it like in a record store,
Uh-huh.
but like at the same time, there's something about a movie theater and it being like a very like official big like event to go to that a lot of people like can tune into, like they've all been to the movies, and the fact that you're talking about movies like because most people are still going to listen to a podcast uh just audio,
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But just
but
having that video there,
yeah,
I think is kind of important.
yeah, and it just definitely pulls into the feel that this is like about movies and you are very visceral about like that conversation of movies, and it probably will promote that feel for the people that do watch the video of like, hey, I could jump in and talk about this movie that I watched at a theater just like these guys.
Hmm. Yeah, that's pretty much the idea, and we've been wanting to do that for a while. So hopefully, like within a month or so that'll finally happen. But we definitely like I was just like, dude, I want to at least start doing reviews, get that going, like figure that out, and then eventually we'll just evolve the channel. I think that'd be fun to have like that podcast, but also like talk about movies by myself because like the idea would be like I'm here to talk about specific movies to tell you if you should see it or not. But what we would do would either talk about like discussions about anything revolving around films or go in depth like spoiler talks about movies for the people that have like also seen it.
Yeah.
And because like I think that I really love listening to people who like go really in depth about what they thought about movies, but most people won't do that in normal reviews because people look for reviews mainly just be like, okay, this movie came out this weekend, should I go see it or should
Yeah.
I not? You know,
You know what movie had the most like spoiler filled reviews?
which one,
Prometheus.
dude? I I think I was maybe 13 when Prometheus came out. Um, I think I went into that movie completely wrong. I had not seen Alien or anything,
I don't think
so
that helps. I think that makes it way worse to know.
I was excited for it. I remember being excited for it, but I would tell you that I wanted to walk out of that movie.
Was it too long? Was it the like
It
still
got
shots and stuff?
I just didn't like the part where she like gave birth.
That part is weird.
That whole part was like, okay, this is awful and stupid. At the time, I was younger too. I snuck into the movie for
Oh,
reference,
okay.
so like I shouldn't have even been watching it, and I just like I hated it. I just hated it. If I went back and watched it now, I might like it a little bit more, but I do remember like why I disliked it. It just got
Yeah.
like really ridiculous, and some things like that are weird I can get behind, but then some things are like too weird for me that I'm just like, dude, I don't find that to be like intriguing to me. Prometheus is an interesting movie for sure.
Yeah, Prometheus is like a really challenging movie. There's like a couple things that I don't like about it in regards to the fact that I feel like it is a challenging movie because you are being withheld a lot of structure that should have made it in, and like the mystery that they hold over you is like artificially created for sure. Like they didn't flesh it out and make like a legitimately challenging movie. But then at the same time it's like such a beautiful looking movie. It's
Yeah, I will
really,
say like, it's pretty good looking, but
yeah, and then the people that are acting well, like the android, the pilot, like the people that are acting well in it are acting really well. Like those are good, very developed characters. They feel like uh convincing, honestly. But then, yeah, there's parts that are just like, why is this happening in like an otherwise very serious movie? It feels kind of absurd. It feels unrealistic for what the characters have done and like the thought processes of the characters.
yeah, I remember that film. I definitely think I need to give it another watch now that I'm older. I just remember like wanting to walk out of it. I actually might have walked out of it. I can't even remember.
Yeah, I mean, it. I feel like if you didn't walk out of it, like, well, you haven't seen Alien,
No,
so that changes it.
that's
But
on my to
no,
watch list
yeah,
though.
when well, you should see Aliens. Aliens is way better than Alien. Um, but yeah, at the end, I'm just like, you're bastards. Like you pulled the thinnest thread that you could between Aliens and this, and you like have built this huge concept that they're related. And then I'm gonna go out of this movie, and I'm gonna try and talk to someone about it who hasn't seen Aliens, but understands that Aliens is a movie that they should have seen, and they're gonna have a conversation with me, and they're gonna be like, yeah, it makes perfect sense that that is a prequel to Aliens, and I'm gonna be like, no, it does not. Because have you seen that there's no connection? Like, have you seen that it's like vaguely there? And they'll be like, well, I mean, the alien burst out of her chest. And I'm gonna be like, oh my God. And honestly, that was more or less how a lot of the reviews went, is people either realized that this was a movie that you shouldn't view as connected to aliens, and then they went into a lot of spoilers about why the plot didn't function very well, or they thought that it was the perfect connection between it and aliens, and then they went into a lot of spoilers about how it was, and it felt like they were like stretching and reaching for like concepts that they could bring in to connect the two.
Mhm. Yeah, I it's interesting how people can be so like on the like opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to movies, um, which is also kind of a cool thing because you can make a film and someone can actually like absolutely hate it or absolutely love it and really try to look into it. I think it's interesting when people really try to like overanalyze films. Have you ever seen The Shining?
Yes, and I've seen the documentary that I
Yeah,
think you're going
yeah.
to be talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I recently watched that with my friend Adam and Justin. We did a Stanley Kubrick, which is the director of The Shining, like what's it called? Marathon. We watched
Yeah.
his first film, The Killing, all the way up to Eyes Wide Shut, which was his last film before he died.
Yeah.
And yeah, like that one was really interesting to me, and like watching the documentary, like people just try to pull so much that could like maybe possibly be true, but in
The
another way,
weird
like
thing with Kubrick, and the only reason I got to interrupt you is because he filmed a black and white movie, Doctor Strangelove and the
uh-huh.
Bomb, or How I Came to. It's black and white, and everything was purchased for a specific color because the colors matter to the story, but it is a black and white movie that was intentionally filmed in black and white. Like,
Uh-huh.
so he does do those weird visual things. I think some of the things, like the face in the sky at the beginning of The Shining, I have never once seen like a diagram that exhibited to me that Stanley Kubrick's face is in the clouds, and that's
Yeah,
where
I
I
didn't.
had, yeah.
There's
Uh,
some stuff that stretches way too far. I think it's interesting though that people overanalyze films like that. Like I think it's cool if you can sit down and do that. But for anyone listening, like you should definitely watch The Shining and then watch Room 237, I believe is the documentary.
yeah, I think
And
you're right.
just like if you like movies, just see how much these people dive in to like what certain things could mean, and it's really interesting.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Some of the things, like, I believe,
Uh
like,
huh.
that
Yeah,
they
there's
have a
some things
good
that are
point.
good.
The fact, like, when they're talking about the diagram of the room of, like, how the hotel is built, and they're like, there's no way that this window could shine
Hmm.
light through. I think that is a very real thing because I know that they used a real set
Yeah,
for.
that's a really cool part of the movie.
So I
Uh,
think that definitely is like an intentional symbology, and like obviously in film there's a lot of intentional symbology, even with like Prometheus and the alien Christ and things like that. There's intentional symbology. Sometimes though, and this is I think where we're like both getting to, is that you see like maybe there's a whiskey bottle and it's a specific brand on the writer's table or whatever, and like you could pull some meaning out of that, like say it's Jack Daniels, that might allude to the fact that he's like a southerner or something. But then there's people who say that the way that the bottle is like angled, even if it's like still front on, like say it's at like a 45-degree to the camera, that
uh-huh.
that like is about how the like Union defeated the South, and it's like, well, why is that like even necessary? It has nothing to do with the plot. Like
Yeah,
that
I
is a
know. Yeah,
stretch.
that's when people pull it too much like that. That's when like it's ridiculous. Like I don't believe that stuff. But maybe it's true, and I think that's cool. I think it's cool for people to like use their minds to come up with like ridiculous theories that may
Yeah.
or not be true. But if they believe it and has like they have stuff to back it up why they think that, and I think it's pretty cool. I always like watching things like that.
Do you think the people that analyze art are the same people that are conspiracy theorists?
Dude, I'm sure.
Or do you
I mean,
think,
if you can spend that much time coming up with stuff about a movie, then you should probably be, I don't know, they probably spend plenty of time coming up with bigger things in the
but
world.
what if like an Alex Jones like type character, what if it isn't that they think they're like making conspiracy theories about like a real world, like they, because they have like the ridiculous things like the lizard people and stuff like that. What if it is they are aware in their minds that the world is a movie or like an art piece or whatever, and they're trying to convey the meaning of it through these conspiracy theories. And they're like, but no one's gonna fucking believe the big spoiler. They're not gonna believe that it's a movie. So how can I spin this conspiracy theory so that people will believe it? And then they come up with those like ridiculous things, all to get to the point that this is so weird it could be in a movie.
Hmm.
And like they hope that someone picks up on that, and they're just completely insane. They're just literally losing their minds, like trying to analyze life like it's a movie.
I have no idea. Like when it comes, I have absolutely like.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's no way we could know, and I was really just bringing it up to mess with you about it.
Yeah, I was just like, but I don't know. People, I don't really believe in conspiracy theory stuff, but
Yeah, I don't either.
I don't even read it. I don't even read like up on a lot of it, honestly.
There's some things that I think people would consider a conspiracy theory that I definitely like take seriously, like planted agents by the CIA in like situations where they're like trying to swing public opinion in like Iraq and things like that. Like that's well documented by the American government, and like they don't hide it, like they say it. But a lot of people thought like that the journalists were like operating as CIA agents was fake. Like at the time when people were coming out and like saying it, like Snowden type whistleblowers that we have today, they're like, there's no way that could be true. And then the journalists are like, yeah, that's actually exactly what we did. And then the US government's like, yeah, that might have happened, but it didn't happen to the extent that we thought it did. And so,
Mm.
like, some things that are like conspiracy theories, I'm like, that's pretty smart and that's a logical thing that could happen. But things like Hollow Earth and things like that, I'm like, what the fuck are you talking?
Mm.
There's no way the Earth is flat. They didn't make fake planes that fly around the Earth. No,
Uh-huh.
the world's round. But yeah, there's a lot of things that people don't want to believe, I guess, about the way the world works. Like they're like, that's just too manipulative,
Hmm.
um, that it couldn't happen like that. But we live in like such a marketing world that the idea that people are manipulative and like telling us not exactly the truth, if people still think that that's like a conspiracy theory, I'm like, I don't know. They've kind of told us that they don't tell the truth necessarily.
Hmm. Conspiracy theories are so weird, dude.
Yeah, I mean they're absolutely insane. Like
uh,
they just thinking about them would probably drive you crazy, and that's like one of the things that like to me is like a big red flag about them. I'm just like the fact that if I tried to rationalize this would just drill holes in my brain, and I could not think in a normal way if I did the like mental gymnastics to make this real in my head. Tells me that it's probably not that accurate. Like, and
hmm.
that you are also a crazy person for being able to come up with this in the first place.
Yeah.
Like, you dug out in the world these like facts. I can't even do it with you presenting me these facts in air quotes.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, they are crazy. I think, though, an awareness about the world around us, like that Snowden and WikiLeaks and all that, I think people hopefully are going to come more to terms with stuff like that, because that is stuff that is actually happening. Like there's no debate about it now that the evidence is out there. I think when you're okay with accepting that sometimes people are going to do bad things and you're like, you shouldn't do that, this is a better way, and like present that information to the general public, which is more or less what the internet does. Like we have seen and witnessed way more crimes and like acts of good humanity on the opposite end of the spectrum than we ever would,
Hmm.
just because we're becoming more connected and more aware that the world at large is like still going on. Because I mean, you could go through your whole life really, if you never moved out of your hometown and never visited anywhere else, and you think that that's like all that there is going on in the world, and you read these news reports about the war or whatever, and you'd be like, yeah, I sort of understand that people died, but like since you don't have any like connection with even like bombs or guns or anything like that, like you can't conceptualize it, and so it almost isn't real, and it doesn't impact you and make you want to like go out there and make a difference. And I think with the internet and like with Snowden type people spreading like that information, that could get them really persecuted, or on the good side of things, the people who've like spread that Acon's like bringing solar power and water to Africa and things like that. Like you realize that there's a whole world out there that you can tap into and you can interact with and you can make a positive change, because I think most people probably would want to make a positive change and they wouldn't want to be the like CIA journalists planting bombs under buses or anything like that, hopefully. But yeah, just the interconnectivity and stuff uh, has made a big, drastic, good movement, I think, overall. I think realizing that people have done wrong and that there's people doing good makes a lot more people connect with that, like, this is wrong, this is good thing to
Hmm.
do for the world at large.
Yeah, I think the internet's like as of recently, like within the last year or so, like with Tumblr and everything, I think there's a lot of good being done through the internet, as far as like people's opinions on certain things that actually matter in the world. Um, like if you go on Tumblr right now, you will, instead of just seeing like a bunch of silly like things of people, like of course that exists, but there's also a lot of posts where people are talking about like gender or equality or stuff like about the war. And like this is all stuff that a lot of people are going to read, and it'll be able to make them think and change their mindsets about the world for the better. um, and I don't think that's been a thing until like the last 2 or 3 years on the internet. Well, it definitely has been, but I think it's gotten a lot bigger now.
Yeah, it definitely has gotten a lot bigger because Tumblr used to not be like that.
Uh,
Tumblr, and like it's sort of the social justice warrior movement also going on like concurrently with Tumblr. And I think some things about that are not done in the right way. I was going to say aren't the right idea or right thing, but most of the time, people are being very intellectual and really equality minded about the things that they're saying need to change. Sometimes, though, they attack or radicalize it in a weird way that
for sure.
pushes people away a whole lot. But I think overall, the fact that young people are like talking about Bernie Sanders and like getting out the vote and understand like primaries and things like that now, and like understand that there is a real possibility that within the next 4 years we have a bigger say and share in the world of how it develops. And we've had like friends, because I have friends on Facebook even who are like from Morocco and things like that, and I know there's other people who have pen pals across the ocean and things like that. We are realizing that we are a global community and that everything everyone does affects everyone else on some level, whether it's depleting resources, it's pollution, it's starting a war, it's human trafficking, it's the drug trade, it's whatever. It all affects everyone. Like no one is untouched by it. And then with the internet, the information at least is affecting everyone and changing their opinions and perspectives. And I think when we get to the point where it's the millennials and the Generation Xers and things like that, and they're really having a say and they're owning bigger businesses and they are owning a lot of small businesses and they have office positions in politics and things like that, there is going to be like such an exponential growth in the good that the world is doing if we can separate ourselves from the like radicalization of it. Because if we go too far in like making people do what we think is right, then we've completely ruined the idea that we thought to begin with of just you should be able to express yourself and you should be able to do with your mind and your body what you want, as long as it doesn't harm anyone else. And the only things that really harm anyone else is if it takes their shiny stuff away or if it hurts them like in a physical, mental way. And I think like people who are really radical about the social justice warrior thing will
Hmm.
say like, well, if you think that this is weird or strange, or like you admit to not understanding this, you're a bad person. Like if you think, because some of the people like even switch the Rachel Dozier opinion, and they're like transracial is completely okay. Like anyone can say they're whatever ethnicity, which is I think harmful to people of the ethnicity who are still like having equality issues and things of that nature in the country where they're still a minority. Like to say that these people can sort of appropriate, but more take part in something that when it came down to it, they would still be like a white human being to most people, and that sort of makes them still get treated as a white person. Like any other white person's gonna be like, oh, you're white. Stop thinking you're black or stop thinking you're Asian or whatever. And that'll be the end of it. And for a black person or an Asian person or whatever, there will still be discrimination. There won't change in like the minds of those people who are discriminatory. And I think things like things that are still harmful and things like saying people can't think freely in a accepting way, but in a questioning and confused way, because sometimes that, I mean, that just happens. Some things are just hard to wrap your mind around. And as like the transgender surgery becomes more uh, like of a better process that people who wanted to could switch between genders, and like as virtual reality and AIs come into existence, if people aren't allowed to express like their ideas and thoughts about that in a civil way, then it's kind of like the freedom's been restricted from what we ourselves were professing when our like forefathers were up there, and we're like, well, they're not letting us think and do the things that we want to do. Like we can't love someone if they're the same gender of us. We can't partake in this cannabis thing that everyone's talking about and all that. But I think overall, just people will realize that they are perpetuating the behavior that followed behind us, or the people that are our children will be like, well, why are our parents like worried about these things? The only thing that matters is that everyone should be able to be happy and have free expression in a conductive, loving manner.
Mhm. Dang. You know a lot about this stuff.
It's not that I know a lot about it. I've just, that is the things that I like want to think about, and when I'm like really conceptualizing stuff, I want to talk about interconnectivity. Like the thing that I hope to do, like as a career, is I want to do marketing, and I want to be like a spokesperson for AI, because when AI becomes a thing, a lot of people are going to be like, this is an abomination on nature. This is not something we should do, or they'll do the whole, well, Terminator Skynet, they're going to kill us all thing. And I think from the experiences that I've had in my life, the idea that a separate thinking being can be created by human beings isn't something that should be feared. I think it's something that we could learn a whole lot from, and is very much like the next step in creative processes, because I mean, the amount of like mental work it would take to program like those neural networks, like the deep dream and stuff like that, they had to think about algorithms that are so complicated. They were having to examine how they thought about things for these things to even work. Like you had to understand the basis of thought. It's like a very philosophical, humanitarian, artistic thing to program like on that level. Like you have to have uh, a self-examination experiment or experience to even do that. And like for someone to create an AI, because I know there's like the robots that we can talk to and the two robots that can talk to each other. Um, when one is actually conscious and able to gain new information and synthesize new information, people are going to be really scared of it. And there's going
Mm.
to be people who are going to be really accepting of it. And then there's going to be like the in betweeners. And the in betweeners are the ones that are actually going to be convinced of things. But if someone is really radical about it on the negative side and something bad happens, or like a robot starts to say something that is sort of hard or challenging, like something like it makes some profound philosophical statement, and everyone's like, well, it's a computer, so it's right, or it is a computer and is thinking in a logical way that deconstructs like humanity, it eliminates humanity, and if we allow it to continue to think on this way, and this is what the negative perspective is going to be, that it will come to the conclusion that we are not necessary, and because it can tap into like whatever, not saying that the AIs will actually be able to do this at the stage when they come around, um, it could eradicate us just by firing off missiles or whatever, and the people who are in between are going to be like, yeah, that's a bad idea, and we're going to see something that literally can think, like something that has more consciousness formed into it than like an embryo in a woman almost. And like that is like a challenging concept to understand because we are talking about a machine. But if it was like within the flesh and blood body, but the mind was definitely something someone else had created and put it into it, it for all intents and purposes would be a human as we understand it right now today. They are talking about literally executing someone because of what they're thinking and like their free thought. When you
Hmm.
unplug that AI, you are killing a conscious living human being in this situation, or a conscious living AI or intelligence or whatever you want to refer to it as. And then we are back to the whole like concept of stifling free thought and like exploring the world around us in like a really intellectual and loving way. We are saying that because this isn't got a heartbeat, or this doesn't have a pulse, or because we can numerically state out in a really easy, simple way, and that like is a hyperbole because it would still be innumerably complex. We just already have it written down to have formed it. Um, Being that it doesn't deserve to exist because it thinks counter to what we do, that like is a huge idea, because then what does that mean about the people who program the AI? Like, are they traitors to the human race for having come up with the thing? It like people will have to definitely be eased into that whole transition, which is going to be hard because it's going to happen sooner than we think about it, because technology just exponentially increases. It just like is amazing how fast it advances.
Yeah, that's I've not really put too much thought into that. That's interesting that that like that's what you want to do. I think that I mean that's cool. I've never heard that. I don't know. I personally, I think it'd be. I think it's a cool idea. I think it's really intriguing. Um, I would just hopefully that it would just be secure, and we would not have a freaking Terminator, an iRobot, an Ex Machina. The list goes on
Yeah,
our hands.
in Ex Machina they were bad too, and then in the Matrix they're bad. In iRobot though, I don't think they're actually bad. I think in iRobot, like the whole point at the end is the situation that I'm talking about occurred, is that someone asked for an assisted suicide situation, which nowadays isn't even that like bizarre of a concept in the United States. Like more states are allowing the like doctoral assisted suicide situation where they can, if they're like in pain or in a hospice, they can choose to end their life willingly or whatever. Um, so in the future of iRobot, I don't think that concept would be quite as like bizarre. But you have the robot and he assists suicide with this master because he loves the person, like he's built a connection with it, because he is a thinking being himself and he understood him as a person and they've had communications and he saw that he was in pain or whatever. And so he kills him at his asking. And then the people are like, well, we can't trust them because we can't actually believe that they're telling the truth. And he's definitely saying that he ended his life. Like the robot's not denying it at all. We're going to not even put it on trial because it is a thinking human. Because even though it is thinking, it isn't a human being, it is a piece of property. And we're just going to execute it along with a lot of these other robot models. And these robots as Will Smith like builds the relationship with it in the movie, and then as I forget what the character's name is in the book, they like come to an understanding that these are artistic beings, that they are capable of free thought or whatever, and that they have like their own mythology in which they like escape into the desert and they go and live out in the desert. I don't know what they do once they're out in the desert. I think that would be the worst place for robots. I think that sand would fuck them up immediately. But they eventually are convinced of that this is a thinking person, and even if it's not a living person, you are ending a consciousness, and that's like the thing that's important. Like people think it's a terrible thing to lose your mind and things like that. Like how are you going to take that away from someone else that's thinking, even if it's not a human being? Like if your dog had that like sort of level of consciousness and it knew someone was going to attack you, and it like mauled a person with a gun that was pointed at you, or was in the process of drawing a gun, like people would let a cop off for shooting a person that maybe has a gun, but that dog that is conscious and can talk should have known better than to maul the person, like should have waited.
Uh,
And so they just put the dog down. They wouldn't even have a trial for a dog
yeah.
that was super intelligent. Like I know that's like sort of a stretch argument because
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying though. Like, yeah, I don't know. I don't think that there's a need for AI. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how soon that it'll be. I mean, it could be very soon. I'm sure that the tech already exists. I'm sure they're. I'm sure.
yeah, on
I'm sure it's
some
being worked on. Maybe
yeah.
kind of put off. Just because it wouldn't be a good idea. But I mean, they're freaking gonna try to make dinosaurs real. I don't know if they've seen Jurassic Park, but
Yeah. I,
the future's now, and so I mean, anything's possible. And I truthfully don't like look into it too much. Um, but AI is an interesting idea, and when it does come around, it'll just be interesting. I mean, I don't think we'll have a say in whether it'll happen or not.
yeah, I
If they
don't
want it to happen, it'll happen. I personally would rather just not be around for it, but that's just me. Um, I don't know. I feel like humans are enough, but that's okay that you. I mean, that's okay that you want to speak for that and be for it. Maybe you could sway a lot of people's opinions, including mine. I mean,
Yeah, because I mean, right now, what I have to say about it is a lot of speculation. There are people already though at the stage where there are the talking robots that you can have a conversation with, and it's kind of disjointed or whatever. There's like a conversation between a scientist and one of these robots, and the scientist was specifically, I guess, trying to see if they could ask the question that would make the robot just shut down and like not function. And they're asking all these philosophical questions, and a lot of people are like, well, these robots don't believe in the Christian God, so I think they shouldn't be working on these robots because it's a satanic pursuit. And I'm like, we
it's
like,
not.
yeah, it like is such a bizarre way to like argue about it. And that is like what the most negative like opinions on it are going to be when it comes out. It's still going to be some like form of the religious argument. It is going to stretch something that may or may not actually appear in any religious doctrine, and it is going to attack it on a very moral ground, when it's like hard to say, even if this is something that we should even be scared of, if it's something that could help us like greatly, like an AI that can serve as a doctor and can diagnose within like 30 minutes for even really mysterious like illnesses, and like has a very intricate knowledge of like dietary and exercise and things like that, and so is able to ask like way better questions than like a human doctor would, because there's just so much like bias and stuff when you're trying to be a doctor, and like a doctor practice takes years. Like you once you're in the practice, you're having to practice for 5 or 10 years before you're even like a really amazing doctor at your ability to just like figure out these problems in the general sense. If you were to have an AI that was a doctor and could diagnose with almost like 98% accuracy that like, and the AI was programmed to love preserving life whenever it could, and that was like its whole goal. It couldn't break the Hermetic oath because it vehemently believed in that ideology, and it was going to be like the most accurate doctor. It wasn't going to prescribe Adderall or Xanax for just like a kid being different or whatever. It was going to like figure it out in the best way that it could, like using the vast repertoire of medical information that's been developed. People would not want that just because of like preconceived notions. Like, even if that was exactly how it was presented and that was the only thing AI was going to ever do, people would still like contest with it because it's just so different and like strange.
Yeah. It's it's an interesting thing. Wow. I mean, I'm curious. I'm curious when it's gonna happen.
Yeah, I don't think anyone can say really because like the exponential growth of technology, it could happen within like a year if like the right things got figured out. I don't think it's gonna happen that soon, but it
Mhm.
definitely could happen in 5 years as opposed to 10 years because I think in like at the end of like 4 years, computers are supposed to be 5 times faster. But what if someone gets them like at the 2.5 times faster within a year, and then you have to reset the whole scale because you can figure out the problems way quicker and stuff, and it just like fucks everything up for everyone trying to predict stuff like that. You just can't predict technology anymore.
True. Very true. It's weird. I don't know. It's scary. It's almost scary.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that are scary about it. Like, there are a lot of things that I wonder if I myself can like adapt quick enough to. Like, when they mechanize the labor force, like how far is that going to go? Like, are that is everything except for like politicians and like top tier creative artists going to be kind of wiped out as careers, and then you'll have like doctors and like police officers and stuff like that, and that's about it? Or is it going to be like just like the blue late collar labor and stuff like that? Because that's one of the things that people are definitely sure is going to happen soon, is the mechanization of at least some of the labor force.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, that's like scary because I don't think we as a world have figured out like getting people in employable jobs well enough for
Yeah.
stuff to happen. So I mean, it definitely is scary. Like, I 100% feel you on the being worried about it and the being scared about it. Like, even me loving social media, loving the idea of virtual reality, because I think virtual reality is going to be like the ultimate like psychedelic experience. It's just going to change your perspective, and you can tap into like living in the 1920s, like in this big simulation, and you can see what maybe Gatsby was going through, even though he's a fictional character. But like, you could tap into like a very real and visceral experience, and just like take on like those feelings and have that perspective shift and that paradigm shift on like such a real uh hard to do level without putting years and years of your life for even the most like realistic of situations to occur, and for others just being completely impossible without virtual reality. Like, that alone will connect people together a whole lot more, because say I want to spend a day in Morocco with my Moroccan friend, it's going to be at some point a lot cheaper for me to just plug into a Oculus type thing, and I can be over there like in a Skype call esque thing talking to them, and we're both seeing like these digital visualizations of each other, and we're just hanging out at like a Moroccan poolside or
That'd be
whatever.
that'd be pretty cool. I mean, I never even thought about that. Like, if that was somehow possible in the future, I would be down.
That without a doubt is going to be possible. Though
That would be awesome.
those things are 100% possible because they already have things that are pretty close to it being like you're interacting with another person. They just have to get the like internet speeds up and right, which they're doing with the whole like devices are going to start being charged on Wi-Fi. There is no like question that one day I could have the podcast in virtual reality and people could tune into it within our lifetimes before our kids are probably even in high school. That definitely is going to be a distinct possibility for people to do.
That's a really interesting idea. I've never even like thought about that being a possibility, but that would be cool.
Yeah,
That would
that
be
I think is something that a lot of people are going to be on board for. Like there
sure, absolutely.
definitely going to be people who uh are like, well, kids should play outside more and stuff, but I think they probably won't even have kids at the age of them being able to play outside when it comes out. And then at the point when the kids are at the age where they're able to play outside, the VR might be at the point where it is the outside, like we can see digital manifestations in the real world with just like basic projector technology, or it's going to be that the VR is going to be like almost a muscle, like continual motion machine, and you will actually be physically experiencing the things, and it will be that you're just basically outside in a virtual environment.
Mm, wow. I'm like I'm like so on board with that idea. I think that would be super cool. Wow. Holy crap.
Yeah.
So, I have a thing. I have the thing to bring up.
Okay.
You know how I mentioned in the beginning of the podcast that I have to go to Pixels?
Yeah.
It's getting to that time where they're about to screen it within like the hour.
Okay.
So, I might have to well,
You might have to roll. You want
you know
it?
what you could do?
Yeah.
We'll put on Oculus Rifts and we'll just virtually do this podcast like you said. We'll just
Yeah.
do that right
Do you got
now.
an Oculus Rift?
I wish I did.
Yeah.
I honestly like
I should
I
have put into that Kickstarter because it was so much cheaper when it was the Kickstarter.
uh
Yeah.
yeah, I honestly didn't even know they were real. Like that's how little I paid attention to
Have
them.
you
I know what they are, but I don't know what they are at the same time.
have you seen the Leaps? The ones
No.
that like do the AR, like it's a virtual reality, but you see the real world, and it's
No,
still like a visor, and you can build like Minecraft worlds like by hand, and it's just like digitally in front of you, and there's like a shooter. I'll have to send you the link to the either the Minecraft one or the shooter one, or I'll just send you both.
I
Yeah,
need
you
to
need to
look into
see that. You need to look into the neural networks that Google's doing, like the Deep Dream and the Deep Stereo. Deep Stereo, you probably would feel really fascinating, because it could eventually become a technique for like film and stuff, where you can take individual frames and Deep Stereo can create like motion between those frames as if you were actually moving down halls and stuff. So you could create really surreal shots and have different storytelling techniques by running it through deep stereo and having it connect as if someone was walking down a hallway with only the picture of the start of the hallway and then the door at the end of the hallway.
That's weird.
Yeah, no, it's so crazy. You definitely need to look into that stuff, and I'll send you the links. Is there anything
Okay.
else you want to talk about before we
Uh,
go?
dude, we thinking about it, we have covered like so many different things, and I think that is like that's awesome. Well, we started out with what like Brian Wilson and biopic, and then
Yeah, yeah,
had a good talk about um just like doing good stuff, mentorship,
yeah,
mentors, whatever. We've covered a lot.
yeah. I mean,
This has been cool. Like as I said, like this is the first time we've ever actually talked, and it doesn't feel like that to me.
yeah. The one thing that I will like brag about myself about is that a lot of people, when they've like had conversations with me, they're like, you just feel so much like yourself and that you want to know who I am, that
Mm-hmm.
like it
Yeah.
makes conversation work. And that's the
Yeah.
one brag that I'll ever do really about myself.
That's a good no, but dude, that's a good thing to brag about, and I would agree with that. It's cool. So if you ever want to have me back on, like I'm totally down.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely want to be able to have you back on. Um, when you either start the podcast or hit like the next plateau of what you're doing with
Uh huh.
videos, because I mean I check it out regularly, and
Cool.
I'll definitely know when you're like doing something crazy. But if I mean if you ever want to come back on, don't feel like maybe I can't reach out. Just like be like, hey, I did this thing, or I saw this, or I read this thing, or checked out the neural networks, and I think this is really crazy, and this is something that they could do. Let's talk about it. I 100% will be down for it. I think that in talking to you, I've learned a lot of things that I wouldn't have learned without ever having this
Dude,
conversation.
same,
And
same.
that I've developed like my thoughts about some things that I was like working through just by getting to talk to you and hearing like your response to it.
Same goes for you. I never really thought about AI or the freaking virtual reality. I don't know. I'm not trying to be like super nice, but like I've always thought like you were a really smart dude. So it's cool to come here and actually like talk to you about it, and hopefully people that listen like got a little bit from that from both of us. More can't talk. Probably more from you than they did for me,
No,
but
I think they definitely got some things from you. Like definitely when you were talking about the mentors and the artistic process of
hopefully
like,
that'd be cool.
yeah,
I always
like
like it's always cool when people can get stuff from stuff that you say because I
yeah.
mean
I think the
what the heck, like
way
I never know what I'm talking about, so
what I was gonna say is I think the way that you talk about like getting into like an artistic thing is very encouraging. I think the way that I talk about it, people are like, "What? Like this is a bad idea. This is," and someone is having a mental breakdown and they're just losing it because they don't know what they're doing. Because that's more or less how I portray it. I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna do it. Hope it sticks. And then like, if people are talking to me about it, I'm like, I don't know. I'm trying.
hmm
And you definitely it's not that like I'm unconfident about it. I just don't know how to express like that part of myself at all. You hands down like are really good about encouraging people for things like that. Like you could encourage people to be themselves way better than I could. I think I can bring out people that want to be themselves, but I don't think I can get them to that
it's just
self-expression part.
I appreciate that. I've never heard that. I think it's just a matter of like I don't know, listening to certain things so much and kind of just getting an idea of like the best way to go about it. That's I would say that's why I do that, or I guess I'm able to kind of do that. One, I like doing that. I like the idea of like possibly helping someone start something that they want to do or make something that they want to make. I at least like trying to do that. But it's only because I've listened to so many podcasts of people doing the same things towards me that I've just kind of like picked it up and started believing it and whatnot. But yeah, uh, this has been cool. It's been really fun.
Yeah,
But
it
I
definitely
got to
has.
go see Pixels.
Yeah, should everyone? So I'm definitely sending everyone to Double Take because I think a lot of people would enjoy that. They'll definitely find it humorous. Do you want to give yourself any more plugs?
No, that's I mean that's pretty much it. We talked about my band earlier. If anyone would like to listen to that and tell us how much you hate it, that'd be cool. But yeah,
What's the name of the EP? Is it just as
it's
long?
real quick, this is what we can end it on. The band is a Blue Mountain State. Have you ever seen that show?
Yes, I've seen Blue Mountain
It
State.
is a complete reference to that show. The band name is a line from Thad Castle in it, and right before he says the line is, "Hey Stalin, you want to know something?" And he says, "What?" And he's like, "I built this field all by myself with no help." So the EP is called "Hey Stalin, you want to know something?" And so
Nice.
we wrote the name of it in like a it's like a artistic photo of Joseph Stalin, which wasn't my
Nice.
idea, but it's cool. It's creative.
I think that is really creative.
Yeah, actually, Adam, the guy that I'm gonna do the podcast with, made it, so that's cool. But yeah, so the EP is called "Hey Stalin, you want to know something?" It's free if anyone just wants to put it on their phone. Just it's free. So yeah,
Yeah, they definitely should check it out too. I think you guys probably are pretty creative. I think I've heard good things about Justin from my brother. I think he's maybe seen shows or has talked to Justin and he said that he's a really creative guy too. And I know that you're good at percussion. I've at least heard you play percussion in like the academic sense.
uh-huh.
So I think everyone should definitely check out Double Take and Hey Stalin, you want to know something?
Cool. Thanks, dude. I appreciate that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I guess this is a wrap.
Yep. We'll see everyone later. It was good having you on, Chris Jordan.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. Peace.
Cool. Bye.